So that's a very famous entrance. We're at the back of it, and we can see many of the buildings were destroyed by the Nazis when they knew that they lost the war. Obviously, it took several weeks, months for the Allies to take over areas. But anyway, so they tried to destroy the evidence of their crimes. So this was the second camp that was built. It was built. It was built during the war because the facilities in Auschwitz weren't big enough. So it's much bigger than before. And the other one, as you can see, a lot of it was burned down and destroyed. They were just trying to hide the evidence of their crime, but they couldn't destroy everything. So we have some barracks that remained. And as a reminder, over 1 million people were killed in here.
Were used for building works in the camp. The barracks behind the barracks here were built using bricks and demolition of houses. And later, because larger brick wooden barracks were built, but most of them didn't survive. So all the foundations and chimneys you can see on the side are remains of wooden barracks. There were 300, of them only 60 remain. The camp was built gradually. It was built in autumn 1941. It was designed for 20,000 prisoners. 27,000 women were housed in the section at the time. 1 year later, the second section on the other side of the ramp was in operation. Much bigger, it was designed for 60,000 prisoners.
This was a section where women were housed. There would have been 1,600 in one barrack, so it was concentrated. So the men and women were kept separate. So the reminder, the vulnerable, the young, the old, the pregnant were killed straight away. They were kept for labor of up to a few months because they were slowly dying. They were separated. So perhaps the husband and the wife, a brother and a sister, mother and son, father and daughter would be separated upon arrival, maybe never to see each other again. And they were shaved, their hair shaved and tattooed, dehumanized. So 1,600 people were housed in here. So this camp is a lot worse than that one. So this would have been an example of how they lived. I'm gonna stop speaking. See this with their pets.
According to survivors, the best place was on the top, a little bit warmer, nothing good on your head, diarrhea, rats and flies were everywhere around. Conditions were far worse than in Auschwitz. No ceiling, no roof, no insulation.
So far conditions in Auschwitz.
Facilities, two chimneys next to them you can see original stove heaters, but fuel was limited. There's nothing to put into the stove. Pieces were given only 1 bucket of coal a day. 1 bucket per barrack is not enough for water. So even so it was freezing all the winter. There's a small washroom, and on the other side you can see empty room. It was supposed to be for the installation of toilets. And installation was not completed in the liberation. So there was no toilet inside. Women would use latrines outside, collective primitive latrines.
So these were the beds where they slept beside another, you know. Apparently these were the lavatories. Remains of writings in there. But yeah, we can see that, you know, they were built. This thing, these concentration camps, you know, Auschwitz, you know, would have been built by the inmates themselves from Auschwitz, and we can see that it was, you know, the bricks would have been quickly put on. You know, it's not really plastered properly or painted, it's just, you know, brick with cement. Done in haste almost, done in a rush. So this is one example of how one of the barracks would have looked like inside. It's terrible. I'm not sure what you guys mean by it's terrible, if it is what I think you're trying to say. And this is why we're filming. I'm filming to educate people.
Prisoners were supposed to have some bread saved from the last evening meal. It's a midday, so then they were counted, they had to take part in the roll call, left the camp for work. Most of the prisoners had to walk a few kilometers to workplace. Work day lasted 11 hours, with half an hour break for soup. Midday, they were given bowl of soup, a little tin soup made from rotten vegetables, potatoes, small computer body, including frozen fat. In the evening, when they returned from workplaces, they were given a piece of bread. Around 300 grams. A small piece of sausage.
So they would have been given, like, I can't really film the guards, so I'm going to keep a distance. So I don't want to get into contention, but they would have given very little food to eat. And this is why they were starving. It was designed that their life expectancy would only be 3 months. You know, so they were given the bare minimum, you know, to live for up to 3 months. And the weakest were killed, and people died on the way. And most of them were killed on the day of admission. So they were given a bowl of thin soup with a tiny piece of bread in the evening. Yes, this is Auschwitz, Bilnikau. You know, the concentration camp built inmates in Auschwitz, so it's near Auschwitz. This is the worst part of Auschwitz. Would have been built by the inmates themselves. That's why we don't see any plastering inside, and then we see wooden beds, barracks.
Now we walk to the closing platform, the collection point, and from there we walk the same road as north of the bridge to pass to the gate upon arrival where sent to the gas chamber. So we'll walk there to see the ruins.
So now we're going to walk in the part where most of the Jews and inmates most of the people who arrived in Auschwitz would have been exterminated immediately, and that's where we're going to. It's the most famous part of Auschwitz. So people may ask, if the Jews were to be exterminated, why do they have, beds for them and buildings? I mean, one of the reasons is because before the kind of concentration camps, Jews were killed through Europe in mass shootings in front of civilians, and it happened all over Europe, especially in Eastern Europe, and eventually was considered to be too grime and traumatic as a crime, and public. Public, can you imagine public shootings of Jewish people? We have to kind of be aware of the fact that many civilians from around Europe were complex in this. They report their Jewish neighbors. It wasn't just Nazis and SNS officers, just sub-police. It would have been neighbors reporting the Jewish neighbors for personal gain. If the Jewish person next door gets taken, arrested, I can take their home. I can take, their clothing, possession. That was their mindset. And so this was happening around Europe, the mass shootings. And then because it was, too public, they then built concentration camps. They were designed to be secret and secretive, and the most vulnerable would have been killed on arrival. They were told, that you're going to be relocated, take your best belongings, and actually upon arrival, the most vulnerable, the weakest, they were gassed straight away. The strongest were kept for labor work to build these concentration camps. They would have been built by Jewish people themselves, and their life expectancy was 3 months, and there was just not enough resources and time to kill as many of them as they wanted to. The chimneys were burning day and night with the corpses of the Jews being cremated, and they couldn't gas them fast enough. And it was terrible, really. It was terrible. Terrible how many people were involved in this crime against humanity, and how many people to this day, in fact more than ever, praise Hitler. People deny the Holocaust, and people even praise him. I think he was crazy people on Instagram, on YouTube. If you look at Hitler documentaries on YouTube, you may find people praising him and what he did. This is why I came here. Obviously, I'm a Christian and I'm interested in the Jewish history. This is a big part of Jewish heritage. They call it the Shoah. Many Jewish people today that are alive today, they are descendants of Holocaust survivors. In Poland, where we are, there was the biggest Jewish population in the world. For 1,000 years they lived in Poland, and there were 3.5 million of them.
Baby, you don't have to do a running commentary every 5 seconds. Just do it. Let's just experience it, man.
John, what about when you talk all the time? Huh?
Yeah, but I don't do it till the next exhibition. Bro.
We're just walking now. Be quiet when she's talking, and we're just walking. But anyway, we can see the barbed wires. Some of them even threw themselves against it. They couldn't take it. We've built last year Jerusalem. I don't know if you knew us back then, Zion. We went in Jerusalem in June of last year. So this is in Auschwitz, sorry my pronunciation, in Poland. Yes, there were many concentration camps. I think there was in the thousands. And it's incredible how quickly this happened. And you know, I have to say, recently I've spoken to, I'll say their nationality, but I'm not talking about every person from that country. I spoke to a Pakistani man last week. He was almost giving a defense, you know, for persecution of the Jews. He was saying, well, they can't be trusted. And a Polish lady said the same thing to me the next day. Obviously, he was a Muslim, she was an atheist. I think born again Christian wouldn't say. But I wanted to ask a Jewish person, why would people say this? But it doesn't excuse anything, you know. No human being should be persecuted and killed. So in here we can see, this is the most famous entrance of the Auschwitz, and we can see the train line would have ended up straight there. No, right. In fact, they were telling us on the coach that they extended the train line so that they could end up right at the entrance over there, and then they would have, you know, straight away taken their belongings and you know, told them, you know, you're going for a shower, and then if they found out there and then they're going to die and they've been lied to. So they were put in ghettos for a few years, you know, around the Jews, and then eventually they were taken here, but they were lied to. They were told, oh, we are gonna relocate you, and in actual fact they were sent here to be exterminated. And the SAS officers guilty of this crime, they were aware they were losing the war, and so they destroyed a lot of the evidence. You can see a lot of remnants of buildings that were destroyed, but they couldn't destroy it all the time.
This road along the train track is walking now. So most of the Jews are from collecting 500 meters. Just before the trains, there were the two biggest structures with the two numbers. Number 2, number 3. We are going to see ruins of that. The two other restaurants in the hall and the hall, they were located behind the second structure in the forest. So those who were sent to the two others, walk that way to the gate. There is a road to the camp. This is the road to the two other gas chambers.
So that was a road to another gas chamber over there.
All the frames, foundations, chimneys are remains of barracks. Also barracks on the way. And they had the impression that they arrived with isolate barracks.
So what the lady was saying, I'm not allowed to film it, that there was a lot of barracks around here. Obviously you can see there was an attempt to destroy them, they were destroyed. And it was to give the impression that people were going to a labor camp and not to gas chambers. And the SCS officers made an effort to destroy the gas chambers to hide the evidence of the crime. That's why we see. It's interesting, the Bible does say that, those who sin, they want to hide their sin because they're ashamed. And the light shine the darkness, and the darkness cannot overtake it. And one thing that is positive, let's say, about all this is, the humanitarian response in Poland from the Allies is, the fact that God had mercy to stop this, as He stopped many civilizations that were trying to destroy people and overtake them, and how these people that committing these crimes were stopped and tried, and although many got away with it, but this crime against humanity was stopped. And what we see these days is people are forgetting what happened in the past, and they're forgetting why the reason Israel, in the first place is because of this. This is Auschwitz. Birkenau is the kind of second camp that was built. This camp was built for mass extermination because the other camp wasn't big enough. And this is the most uncivilized and barbaric one. You can see all these barracks built to house 1,600 people in each one. With the whole purpose to enslave Jews and use them for manual labor and kill them within a space of a few months. So what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, what's my thoughts? Oh man. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I literally just studied this stuff when I was in. You got the kind of right in my face.
Oh, because of the microphone.
Okay, so, yeah. I literally studied this stuff when I was like in secondary school. I didn't really think of it that much, although I have used it in polemics, especially against atheists who don't believe in actual morality. But I mean, when you actually, there's a difference between, speaking about or even doing geography, sorry, not history, not geography, that's a different one, history books and stuff like that on it, when you're in secondary school and there's actually witnessing it. And it's like, yeah, and I mean, it's sort of like my mindset is, yeah, it's a bit awkward, but yeah, my mindset is just, I can't imagine what I would do in this situation, because it's different when you put yourself into the shoes of the actual people that have suffered, and you got to imagine like women, children, and men, of course, who are innocent, who have come here. You can imagine the actual tears, the fear of
and
knowing
the shock.
what's happening, seeing people die around you, not being able to do nothing because there's nothing that can be done. Or the separation, for example, as you saw, there was separation there that would have occurred.
And the physical trauma, may I add?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously the physical trauma would have been great, and it just, we don't really think too much about that, and that's why I'm not really saying too much, because for me, really, I can say a ton of things about it, but it's more so you have to experience it to really understand, just how extreme it was. Like, I mean, the closest thing you can get is like, I don't even know.
North Korea, they apparently have concentration camps, and
maybe even North Korea, but I mean, the closest thing I can think of was just the transatlantic slave trade. But I mean, even then, there was, for example, they'll be castrated, sold into slavery.
They weren't kept with a life expectancy of 3 months. They would have wanted them to live for
decades. Yeah, they would have wanted them to live. So and that's what's interesting. It was just mindless torture.
Yeah, so
for the sake of it.
And here we see the rail tracks, that they were extended to deliver the Jews right into Auschwitz. And sometimes I'm repeating myself because there are maybe people just joining in, as that the Jews were initially put into ghettos during the time of the war, pre-war, and then eventually they were told, okay, we're relocating you, get your best belongings, and they would have not had any idea of this, what was awaiting them. However, they would have.
And I want to just add
Can I just finish my point 1 second, and then just 1 minute, and then they would have got into these trains, and those traveling from Greece, all the way from Greece, they would have had no water, no food, no light for 7 days, and they would have died on the journey. So others would have maybe been there a few days, so they would have had a gut feeling that something is terribly wrong, and then they would have got here, and then they would have been separated, and some would have put in gas chambers straight away, which is what would have happened right there as soon as they arrived, and their best belongings taken.
Yeah, I mean, you've already said it. But yeah, anyway, look, one of the things that I obviously disagree with Amy on is actually just this whole thing of like filming and speaking. I think there's a time and a place, but I mean, for me, I think look, it's not sacred because obviously it's not ugly, but I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where you just have to reflect more so than anything. I would encourage if you've got the means to come up here, and really,
But a lot of people don't have the means. I
didn't say everybody. I said if. That's why I implied if. If you haven't got the means, then don't. But you're only going to really experience it truly if you're standing here, so to speak. You're not going to experience it if you're not.
I mean, the reason why I'm filming, this would have been destroyed, as I said earlier. The SAS, the Nazis, would have tried to destroy the evidence. The reason why I'm filming is because since the 7th of October, I've seen a rise, especially on social media, of antisemitism. People, going in the streets saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which can easily mean a wipeout of the Jewish people, since this is what Hamas is pushing. They want to kill every Jew. So if you're kind of promoting the wipeout of Israel, then this is what you're supporting. So from that, the fact that worldwide there is that kind of mantra, that motto, to the fact that online there are people openly supporting Hitler and Nazism, openly, to something that is shocking, that should be classed as a hate speech, is now acceptable speech. And that made me curious to come, and I'm filming to kind of evidence this and encourage people to come and see it. Because people don't research history. And the whole thing about World War II is, the Jews that were liberated said, never again. This is what they say, never again. They have in the UK organizations called Generation to Generation, where they try to, tell the stories of Holocaust survivors who mostly have passed away. So their children, grandchildren are telling their stories. Because if you forget history, then you repeat history. That's what people have said in the past, and now we see a rise in anti-Semitism. And many Jewish people in Europe said that it didn't happen kind of suddenly. It happened over time. There was, first the open anti-Semitism as we see today. There was jokes made in the pub, and then there was, the open kind of a line of Jewish people in certain places. And then there was, the wearing of the yellow star. Finally, they were put in ghettos, and then they were taken here. Although most people didn't know what was happening, but it kind of happened gradually over time. It didn't happen suddenly. And so when we see a rise in anti-Semitism, the concern is, where will this lead to? If it becomes normalized. I went to the hospital a few months ago, and a Muslim lady that treated me was wearing a badge saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. If I was an Israeli, I would find it intimidating. In fact, I found that intimidating. I really did. I felt terrible, and I felt like, this is the National Health Service, it's not a private clinic, and I have to let somebody like that treat me. And in fact, the court of laws, they found that this type of, like they call it anti-Zionist belief system is okay. But it's not okay when we forget why is there an Israel in the first place. It's because of this. At the back there we can see a church. You probably can't see it, but it made me wonder whether, it looks like an oldish building. It's been there since that time, and what did the people there thought of this? So I'm just gonna go and see what they're doing there. So this would have been gas chambers that were destroyed. So we just see the bottom of it. Obviously we can see they try to destroy the evidence. Yeah.
The bodies were collected and transported using electric lift to the ground level in this house. On the right hand side of the ground floor, there were furnaces.
Yeah, so what the lady is saying is that there was gas chambers here, and then the furnaces were there to cremate the bodies, again to hide the evidence. And in regards to your question, critical thinker, I would say that those Christians who persecuted Jews during the Crusade and World War II, they were not Christian. In fact, there is evidence that Roman Catholics, obviously some, not all, they were supporting Hitler. We know, I think, that the Vatican was supporting Hitler, and this is problematic. Jesus was a Jew. God is a God of love. He's a God of Israel. He would have not supported this. It's demonic for any human being to do that.
During the most significant revolt in the camp, the revolt was organized by Jews who worked in the crematorium. They set the crematorium on fire. The crematorium was destroyed by prisoners. They used explosives, smuggled into the camp Jewish women who worked outside in the ammunition plant. 4 women from
So the lady is saying that there was a revolt by the Jews who blew up some of the gas chambers.
The remaining crematoria were destroyed by Germans a few days after the war. After the war, it was decided to preserve the ruins as they were found, so only conservation preservation works have been carried out. It was decided not to reconstruct the building, but to preserve remains in the same state. So archaeological works were carried out in the 60s here in this area, on the site close to the ruins, and objects were found. Small items victims had in their pockets, house keys, coins, parts of glass bottles, medicine bottles, Celtic bottles, but also notes written by
So what the lady was saying, because I'm not allowed to film it, is that, you know, there was Jews that were working in the crematoriums, and you know, obviously they had no choice, and they wrote some notes to, you know, write what happened, and they would have, you know, that these notes were found near the crematorium, and they were, you know, used as historical evidence that the Nazis tried to obviously destroy. And it was decided that the gas chambers in here and crematorium would be kept, not rebuilt, and this is why it's left like this, you know, as evidence of what happened.
Another different facility. Behind them there were 30 storehouses with the belongings confiscated on their run was sorted out before sending to Germany. The 30 storehouses were called in the camp Canada, like country Canada, because Canada during the war was a symbol of wealth, place of plenty, associated with
So right at the back we can see that's where the Jewish people belongings were kept. Right there when they arrived, they were taken off them, and they were sorted out by the Nazi to be taken to Canada, sorry, Germany, and they were called Canada because at the time of the war, Canada was considered a wealthy nation. And yeah, there are places where they have concentration camps today in China and in North Korea, but obviously we don't know. I mean, the crazy thing about China is that you can actually buy an organ online, you can book yourself, you can buy it, and that can only mean one thing, is that, you know, they're taking these organs from alive people and maybe killing them, you know, and it's terrible.
Apparently the guys working there, there's a few that killed themselves. Cowards.
They kill themselves.
Yeah.
What, the SAS officers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them old.
Yeah. The SES officers, they kill themselves. I mean, it's,
They have a great punishment now.
yeah. And as a reminder for anybody watching, you know, we're Christians and we believe in the gospel, which means Jesus died for our sins because we were born as sinners. And when we receive Him, believe He died and resurrected, and believe He's Lord, and we receive the gift of the Holy Spirit and become born again.
People were evacuated, relocated to other camps in Germany, Hamburg and Belgium, Buchenwald, Sachsenhausen in the different camps. The prisoners had to walk 70 kilometers to the railway stations in Silesia. It took 3 days. And from Silesia in open wagons, they were transported to them. Evacuations took by death. Around 10,000 or 60,000 people were evacuated. Those were the
I might end the live stream. So thank you for joining. I'm going to end the live stream now. But thank you. God bless you.